The neon sign of Joe's Quantum Diner flickered against the starlit Nevada desert, its promise of best coffee in the galaxy casting a blue-pink glow across the empty parking lot. Sarah Chen wiped her grease-stained hands on her coveralls and squinted at the quantum engine diagnostic pad. Another late night at the Quantum Propulsion Research Facility meant another dinner of Joe's infamous black coffee and synthetic eggs. The bell chimed as she pushed open the door, but the usual welcoming shout from Joe never came. Instead, she found the diner unnaturally quiet, save for the soft hum of the holographic jukebox playing an old Elvis tune. The only other patron sat at the far end of the counter, a tall figure wrapped in what appeared to be a shimmering cloak, with skin that seemed to shift colors like oil on water. Joe stood frozen behind the counter, his weathered face pale as he stared at the stranger. Sarah's hand instinctively moved to the quantum spanner in her pocket, but something about the visitor's posture, a subtle slump of the shoulders, a weary tilt of the head, made her pause. Your eating establishment's reputation extends far beyond your solar system. The stranger spoke, their voice a melodious blend of whispers and chimes. I hope I have not caused distress by my presence. Sarah found herself moving closer, her scientific curiosity overwhelming her caution. You've heard of Joe's Diner in space? She asked, sliding onto a nearby stool. The figure turned, revealing a face that seemed to be composed of crystalline structures that caught and reflected light in impossible ways. I am Krelix, former chief diplomat of the luminous Concordat. And yes, your Earth's diners are somewhat famous among certain circles. Particularly this one. It sits on a unique quantum resonance point. Joe finally seemed to shake off his shock. Quantum what now? Sarah's eyes widened. The quantum fluctuation patterns we've been detecting at the facility. They're centered here. Krelix's crystalline features rearranged themselves into what might have been a smile. Indeed, your world sits at a crossroads of quantum pathways. It's why I chose this location for sanctuary. Sanctuary? Joe asked, his hands automatically reaching for his coffee pot. You're running from something. Not something. Someone. Krelix's voice darkened. There are those in the Concordat who wish to use Earth's quantum pathways for less peaceful purposes. I came to warn. The diner's windows suddenly blazed with harsh white light. 3 black vehicles pulled into the parking lot, their engines eerily silent. Sarah recognized the insignia on their sides. Advanced Defense Intelligence Division. They found me faster than anticipated, Krelix said, rising. I apologize for bringing this to your establishment. Sarah made a split-second decision. Joe, the basement storage room. The one with the quantum shielding for your experimental coffee beans. Joe blinked, then nodded, reaching under the counter for a key card. Through the kitchen, past the freezer. But what? No time to explain. Sarah cut him off, grabbing Krelix's arm. The alien's skin felt like silk over steel. I've spent 5 years studying quantum mechanics. If they're tracking you through quantum signatures, that room should hide you. As they hurried through the kitchen, Sarah heard the diner's door chime again, followed by measured footsteps and stern voices. Her mind raced through possibilities. She had just committed herself to harboring what might be an intergalactic fugitive, based on nothing but a gut feeling and scientific curiosity. The storage room door slid open with a soft hiss. Inside, experimental coffee beans from around the world sat in quantum-shielded containers. Joe's secret hobby was developing the perfect blend through quantum enhancement. Sarah had helped him set up the shielding as a side project, never imagining it would be used to hide an alien diplomat. Why are you helping me? Krelix asked as Sarah sealed the door. She thought about the wariness she'd seen in the alien's posture, the genuine appreciation for a simple Earth diner, the warning about Earth's safety. Because sometimes the right thing to do isn't the logical thing. And because any species that travels across the galaxy for a cup of coffee can't be all bad. Above them, footsteps moved across the diner floor. Sarah's quantum spanner buzzed. They were using quantum scanning equipment. But the storage room's shielding held. After what seemed like hours but was probably only minutes, the footsteps retreated. The diner's bell chimed one final time. Through the room's small window, Sarah watched the black vehicles pull away. But she knew this was just the beginning. She had just entangled herself in something far bigger than late-night coffee runs and quantum engine repairs. Krellix's crystalline features shifted in the dim light. "You should know. By helping me, you've now become part of a story that spans galaxies. The truth I carry could either prevent a war or start one." Sarah thought about her quiet life at the research facility, the predictable routine of engines and equations. Then she smiled. "Well, I guess it's a good thing we're in the right place for a cup of coffee. Something tells me we're going to need it." Joe's voice came through the door. "All clear up here, but you too might want to see this. The news feeds, they're saying something about an alien invasion force approaching Earth, and they're blaming someone matching your description, friend." Sarah and Krellix shared a look. The real story was just beginning, and somehow a small Nevada diner had become ground zero for humanity's first real contact with galactic politics. Sarah had a feeling she wouldn't be making it to work tomorrow, or possibly ever again. The desert night stretched endlessly before them as Sarah's beaten-up quantum hybrid car sped along the empty highway. Krellix sat in the passenger seat, their crystalline form shifting colors in response to passing headlights. The car's ancient radio crackled with emergency broadcasts about the alleged alien invasion. "These reports are fabricated," Krellix said, their melodious voice tight with concern. "The Concordat has no invasion fleet, but those who wish to seize power will use this fear to their advantage." Sarah kept her eyes on the road, her mind racing. "You mentioned Earth's quantum pathways earlier. What exactly are they?" "Your planet sits at an intersection of natural quantum tunnels through space-time," Krellix explained. "Think of them as cosmic highways. The faction I oppose wants to seize control of these pathways, effectively turning Earth into a strategic military checkpoint." The quantum spanner in Sarah's pocket suddenly hummed to life. She pulled over, killing the headlights. In the distance, a military convoy passed by, their vehicles equipped with what looked like modified quantum scanning arrays. "They're getting better at tracking quantum signatures," Sarah muttered. "We need somewhere to hide and think this through." She pulled out her tablet, scrolling through research facility maps. "Wait a minute." Her fingers flew across the screen, pulling up old survey data. 3 years ago, our facility detected strange energy readings from an abandoned mining complex. The official explanation was equipment malfunction, but she turned to Krellix. Could it have been picking up traces of these quantum pathways? Krellix's crystalline features brightened. "Better. If I'm reading these coordinates correctly, that's the location of something my people call a Nexus Archive. A repository of knowledge left by ancient spacefaring civilizations." Joe's voice crackled through Sarah's communicator. She'd given him an old emergency channel before they left. "You too might want to turn on the news. They're declaring martial law in 3 states, including ours. Military's setting up checkpoints everywhere." Sarah studied the mining complex's location on her tablet. It was only 30 miles away, but with checkpoints going up, it might as well have been on Mars. They needed a plan. "The quantum shielding from Joe's storage room," she said slowly. "I think I can modify my car's engine to generate a similar field. It won't be perfect, but it might hide us from their scanners." For the next hour, Sarah worked under the desert stars, her quantum spanner humming as she rewired her car's experimental engine. Krellix helped, their knowledge of quantum mechanics far surpassing Earth's current understanding. Together, they created something entirely new, a hybrid of human ingenuity and alien technology. "Your species continues to surprise me," Krellix commented as Sarah made the final adjustments. "Most civilizations would have turned me in immediately, yet here you are, rebuilding an engine in the dark to help the stranger." Sarah smiled, wiping grease from her hands. "Maybe that's why Earth has these quantum pathways. The universe has a sense of humor." They encountered their first checkpoint just before dawn. Sarah's heart pounded as she activated their makeshift quantum shield. The military scanners swept over them and passed on. Their hybrid technology had worked. The mining complex rose from the desert floor like a metal skeleton. As they approached on foot, Krelix's crystalline body began to pulse with a soft light, responding to something hidden deep within the abandoned structure. "The archive is here," they whispered. "But we're not alone." Sarah saw them too. Fresh tire tracks in the dust, signs of recent activity. Someone else knew about this place. They found a side entrance, partially hidden by years of accumulated sand. The door's lock was new, but Sarah's quantum spanner made quick work of it. Inside, the air was thick with dust and the lingering scent of ozone. Their footsteps echoed through empty corridors until they reached what had once been the main mining chamber. But the industrial equipment had been cleared away, replaced by something that made Sarah's scientific mind reel. A massive crystalline structure dominated the chamber, its surface covered in shifting symbols and pulsing with quantum energy. Around its base, Earth computers had been set up, attempting to interface with the alien technology. "Someone's been studying it," Sarah said, examining the setup. "But they haven't managed to access it yet." Krelix approached the crystal, their own body resonating with its energy. "This archive contains proof of the conspiracy, records of secret meetings, planned false flag attacks, everything needed to expose the truth. But it also holds something far more valuable: the complete map of Earth's quantum pathways and instructions for their use." A door slammed somewhere above them. Voices echoed through the complex. "Company's coming," Sarah said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Please tell me you know how to open this thing quickly." Krelix placed their hands on the crystal surface. "Yes, but once I begin, the energy surge will be detected. We'll have minutes at most to download the data and escape." Sarah pulled out a quantum data core from her pocket. Standard equipment for engine diagnostics, but it would have to do. "Then I guess we'd better make those minutes count." As Krelix began the activation sequence, Sarah couldn't help but smile grimly. Somehow she'd gone from repairing quantum engines to downloading ancient alien secrets in an abandoned mine while being hunted by her own government. And somewhere in the Nevada desert, a small diner's neon sign still promised the best coffee in the galaxy. A promise that had inadvertently sparked an adventure that would change both their worlds forever. The archive's crystal pulsed with increasing intensity, bathing the chamber in waves of quantum energy. Sarah's data core hummed as it absorbed streams of ancient knowledge, while footsteps echoed closer through the mining complex's metal corridors. 2 minutes until download completion, Krelix announced, their crystalline form resonating with the archive's frequency. "But our visitors will arrive sooner than that." Sarah pulled her quantum spanner from her pocket, adjusting its settings. "Then we'll have to give them a proper welcome." She aimed the tool at the chamber's main entrance, reversing its polarity to create a localized quantum disruption field. Anyone walking through that door is going to find their electronics very unhappy. The first agent burst through the entrance just as she finished. Their tactical gear, packed with quantum scanning technology, sparked and sputtered. The agent stumbled, momentarily disoriented. But what caught Sarah's attention was their insignia. Not military or ADID, but a corporate logo she recognized from her own research facility. "Quantum Horizons Corporation," she breathed. "They're the ones who've been studying this place." The corporation had always claimed to be developing peaceful applications for quantum technology. Now she understood their sudden interest in funding her facility's research. More agents poured in, forced to rely on basic weapons as their advanced tech failed. Krelix raised their hand, creating a barrier of shifted quantum states between them and the intruders. 60 seconds remaining. The data contained something they desperately want to hide. Through the quantum barrier, a familiar face appeared. Dr. Marcus Webb, head of research at Sarah's facility, walked calmly into view. "Ms. Chen, I had hoped you wouldn't become involved in this mess. Your work on quantum engines has been invaluable to our project." Project? Sarah's voice dripped with sarcasm. You mean your plan to turn Earth into an intergalactic military checkpoint? To start a war for profit? Webb smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Progress requires sacrifice. The quantum pathways are the greatest scientific discovery in human history. Did you really think we'd leave their control to chance? To bureaucrats and politicians? 30 seconds, Krelix whispered. Webb's smile faded. That archive contains sensitive information about both our species. The wrong people might misinterpret our methods. Surely you understand, as a scientist, that sometimes the end justifies the means. Sarah thought about the fear in Joe's eyes when the news announced the invasion, about the military checkpoints going up across the state, about ordinary people being manipulated into accepting a war they didn't want or need. The only thing I understand, she replied, is that you're willing to sacrifice millions of lives for control of something you barely comprehend. She glanced at her alien companion. But Krelix's people have studied these pathways for millennia, and they chose to share that knowledge, not hoard it. Download complete, Krelix announced. The archive's crystal began to dim. Webb's expression hardened. Take them. The alien's crystalline structure is valuable enough, but I want that data core intact. The agents opened fire just as Krelix's quantum barrier began to flicker. Sarah dove behind a column, her mind racing. The complex's original mining equipment still hung overhead, including an old quantum-powered drilling platform. Krelix, she shouted. Remember how I modified my car's engine? Same principle. The alien diplomat understood immediately. Together, they aimed their combined quantum technologies at the drilling platform. The interaction between Earth and alien quantum manipulation created a cascade effect. The platform's engine overloaded, bathing the chamber in waves of quantum displacement. For a moment, reality itself seemed to shimmer. Sarah felt a sensation like falling in every direction at once. When it cleared, she and Krelix stood alone in the chamber. Webb and his agents had vanished, shifted a few quantum degrees out of phase with normal spacetime. They'll reintegrate in about 6 hours, Krelix explained, their voice tinged with admiration. A most elegant solution. Yeah, well. Sarah checked the data core. Still intact. Let's be somewhere else when they do. But first, she pulled out her communicator, connecting to a secure channel. Joe, remember that backup plan we discussed? Time to call in some friends. Because Sarah had realized something during Webb's monologue. This wasn't just about alien politics anymore. Earth's own power brokers were deeply involved, and they'd need help from both worlds to expose the truth. Fortunately, she knew just the place to start building an alliance, a certain diner where the coffee was hot, the quantum resonance was strong, and the regulars were about to become a lot more interesting. As they emerged from the complex into the desert dawn, Sarah's communicator crackled with encrypted messages. Underground resistance networks, awakened by Joe's signal, were already mobilizing. Scientists, hackers, and truth-seekers who'd been watching the signs, waiting for proof of what they'd suspected. Your species continues to surprise me, Krelix said as they watched the sunrise. In the face of conspiracy and corruption, you choose to fight back, to seek truth rather than comfort. Sarah thought about the data core in her pocket, heavy with secrets that could reshape 2 civilizations. Well, someone once told me the right thing isn't always the logical thing. Besides, she grinned, I really hate it when people mess with my coffee break. Joe's quantum diner had transformed. The neon sign still buzzed against the desert sky, but the casual breakfast crowd had been replaced by an unlikely assembly of rebels. Hackers huddled over quantum-encrypted laptops. Scientists from competing institutes shared data on holographic displays, and in the corner booth, a group of alien refugees from the luminous Concordat discussed strategy with Earth's top quantum physicists. Sarah stood at the counter, examining a holographic map of reported military movements. The data core from the archive had revealed more than just conspiracy. It had exposed a network of hidden quantum pathway nodes across Earth, each one a potential flashpoint for the coming conflict. They're moving faster than we anticipated, Krelix observed, their crystalline form reflecting the hologram's blue glow. Quantum Horizons has already begun activating the pathway nodes. Each activation draws more attention from space, attention they'll use to justify their false invasion narrative. A young hacker named Mai looked up from her laptop. We've intercepted communications between Webb and someone called the High Arbiter. They're planning to stage an attack on major cities within 48 hours. Sarah's hands clenched around her coffee mug. The archive data had revealed the High Arbiter as a corrupt official from Krelix's world, working with Quantum Horizons to orchestrate this crisis. Both sides would profit from the ensuing war. Earth's quantum technology industry would boom, while certain factions in the Concordat would gain control of strategic resources. 2 days, Sarah muttered. No pressure. Joe emerged from the kitchen, carrying a fresh pot of his quantum-enhanced coffee. Got some news from my old military contacts, he said quietly. Word spreading through the ranks. Not everyone's buying the invasion story, but they're trapped following orders. They're waiting for proof. Proof we have, Krelix replied, but broadcasting it globally won't be simple. They're monitoring all conventional channels. Sarah's quantum spanner hummed in her pocket, and an idea began to form. What if we don't need conventional channels? She pulled out the tool, studying its crystalline core. The quantum pathways they're activating. They're like a network, right? A web connecting different points in space-time. Krelix's features brightened with understanding. Yes, and each node they activate strengthens that network. They're building their own transmission system, a system we could hijack. Sarah grabbed a napkin, sketching rapidly. If we modify enough quantum devices to resonate at the right frequency, we could piggyback on their network, broadcast the truth through the very pathways they're trying to control. That's why they can't detect our little resistance headquarters, Joe added, gesturing around his diner. The quantum coffee experiments created a sort of signal shadow. We're hiding in plain sight. May's fingers flew across her keyboard. I can help distribute the broadcast pattern to other resistance cells, but we'll need to get close to a major node to initiate the transmission. Webb's main facility, Sarah said. The research complex where I worked. They'll have a primary node there. It's heavily guarded, Krelix warned, and my presence would trigger every alarm they have. Sarah smiled grimly. Good thing I still have my employee ID, and she pulled out her quantum spanner. A few tricks they haven't seen yet. The next 18 hours passed in a blur of preparation. The resistance network grew, spreading through quantum-encrypted channels. Joe's coffee kept everyone awake as they modified communication devices, prepared data packets, and coordinated with sympathetic elements in both human and alien governments. But their activity didn't go unnoticed. As dawn approached, a fleet of black vehicles appeared on the horizon. At the same time, orbital sensors detected multiple ships entering the solar system, the High Arbiter's forces, right on schedule. They're early, May announced, her voice tense. The staged attack. It's happening now. Sarah looked around the diner, at humans and aliens working together, at the unlikely family they'd formed in this desert sanctuary. Everything they'd done had led to this moment. Change of plans, she declared. We move now. May, get our message ready to broadcast. Joe, signal the other resistance cells. Krelix. She turned to her alien friend. Ready to help me break into my old workplace. The crystalline being's surface rippled with determined energy. I believe your people have a saying. Go big or go home. Sarah checked her modified quantum spanner one last time. Actually, I prefer another Earth saying. She looked at the approaching vehicles, then at the distant shape of her research facility rising from the desert floor. Fortune favors the bold. Outside, the desert wind picked up, carrying the first hints of an approaching storm. But inside Joe's quantum diner, as the resistance prepared for their decisive move, the coffee kept brewing. Still the best in the galaxy, even on the brink of an interstellar crisis. Sarah's modified quantum car hummed quietly as they approached the research facility's perimeter. Dawn was breaking, painting the desert in shades of purple and gold. Above them, strange lights flickered in the sky. The High Arbiter's ships, positioning themselves for the staged attack that would ignite an unnecessary war. Security's been upgraded, Sarah noted, studying the facility through quantum-enhanced binoculars. Quantum scanners, motion sensors, and is that a temporal displacement field? Webb's not taking chances, Krelks replied, their crystalline form dimmed to near invisibility. He knows what we can do with the archive's data. Sarah's employee ID got them through the first checkpoint. Her quantum spanner, modified with Krelix's alien technology, fooled the scanners into seeing exactly what they expected, just another early morning researcher. But they both knew their disguise wouldn't last long. The facility's main quantum node was housed in the central laboratory, a massive chamber where Sarah had spent countless hours working on engine designs. Now those same engines had been repurposed, their power feeding into Webb's network of quantum pathways. They reached the lab's entrance just as alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Above them, the sky rippled with energy as the High Arbiter's ships began their choreographed attack. "They're right on schedule," Sarah muttered, her fingers flying over the door's security panel. "My, are you ready?" Her quantum communicator crackled. Broadcasting network primed. Resistance cells worldwide standing by. "We just need you to hijack that node." The lab door slid open, revealing Dr. Webb standing calmly beside the quantum node, a towering pillar of light and energy that pulsed with otherworldly power. Behind him, a holographic display showed cities around the world, each marked as a target for the staged invasion. "I wondered when you'd arrive," Webb said, his voice almost sad. "You know, I always admired your intuitive understanding of quantum mechanics, Sarah. You saw patterns others missed. Like the pattern of lies you've been spreading." Sarah stepped forward, Krelix beside her, using fear to manipulate two civilizations into war. Webb gestured at the quantum node. "Look at what we've achieved. In preparing for this invasion, humanity has advanced quantum technology by decades. The Concordat's military-industrial complex is thriving. Everyone wins. Except for the millions who will die in your manufactured war," Krelix countered, their voice resonating with ancient authority. A new figure shimmered into existence, a hologram of the High Arbiter, their form a more rigid, militaristic version of Krelix's crystalline structure. "Progress requires sacrifice, old friend. Surely your time among humans hasn't made you forget that." Sarah's hand tightened around her quantum spanner. The whole facility was vibrating now, power building in the quantum network as Webb prepared to broadcast the signal that would trigger their false flag attack. "You're right about one thing, Webb," Sarah said, taking another step forward. "I do see patterns others miss, like how this quantum node isn't just a transmitter. It's a resonance chamber. And you've tied it into every quantum pathway you've activated." Webb's eyes widened as he realized what she meant. "You wouldn't dare. Disrupting the node could tear apart the entire network." "Actually," Sarah smiled, raising her modified spanner, "I was counting on that." Everything happened at once. Sarah fired her quantum spanner, its beam amplified by Krelix's crystalline form. The node's energy field flickered, then began to pulse with a new frequency, the one they'd prepared with Mai and the resistance. Webb lunged for the controls, but Sarah was faster. The archive's data, combined with the resistance's message, began flooding through the quantum pathways. Every screen, every quantum device, every pathway node across the planet lit up with the truth. The High Arbiter's hologram distorted. "What have you done?" "Given people a choice," Krelix answered. "Something you never did." Through her communicator, Sarah heard May's excited voice. "It's working. Military commands are standing down. The High Arbiter's ships, they're being surrounded by Concordat peacekeepers." Webb slumped against the controls. Years of planning, undone by a mechanic and a refugee. "No," Sarah corrected him, watching as the quantum node's light shifted from angry red to a peaceful blue, undone by people choosing to work together instead of being manipulated into fighting. Hours later, Sarah stood outside Joe's quantum diner, watching ships in the sky. Not invaders now, but a joint Earth Concordat peacekeeping fleet. Inside, humans and aliens sat together at the counter, sharing coffee and stories. "So," Joe said, refilling her cup, "what happens now?" Sarah looked at Krellix, who was explaining quantum physics to a fascinated group of local mechanics. "Now we build something better. The quantum pathways were never meant to be weapons. They're bridges between civilizations. And thanks to your quantum-enhanced coffee experiments, Earth has its first official interstellar embassy right here." "An embassy?" Joe raised an eyebrow. "In my diner. Why not?" Sarah grinned. "After all, you already serve the best coffee in the galaxy, certified by both human and alien customers now." Outside, the desert sun set on a changed world. The quantum pathways that had almost been used to start a war now carried messages of peace and cooperation between stars. And in a small diner in Nevada, where it all began, the coffee kept brewing. A simple drink that had somehow helped save two civilizations. The end.